Yeah, it's really demoralizing. When you feel like you're getting better at your job, but you're earning less, or you're working a lot more, doing the same thing on kind of that hamster wheel, it really doesn't make you feel good. It makes you wonder, why did I start this business? Maybe I should just go work for someone else. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. I just happen to be an attorney. But when I opened up my doors, I faced a really stark reality, which was I don't know how to run a business. They didn't teach me that in law school. They taught me how to be a lawyer.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleacademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou. And boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest has a beautiful, heart-driven story of how she came to be a true thought leader, nay, a heart leader, when it comes to serving people with the law. I am speaking, of course, of none other than the one, the only, the legendary Lauren Lester. Welcome to the show, Lauren.
Thank you so much, Nikki. I love that introduction. I might have to start using that. The legendary. It goes with the LL theme.
It sure does. L to the power of 3. The legendary Lauren Lester. All right. So, Lauren, tell us your backstory. How'd you get to be the great Lauren Lester?
So I am an attorney, and like most attorneys, the day that I passed the bar exam was a huge moment of triumph for me, not only because I passed this one of the most difficult exams in the world, but because I was on the precipice of my dream, which was always to run my own business. I am an entrepreneur at heart. I just happen to be an attorney. But when I opened up my doors, I faced a really stark reality, which was I don't know how to run a business. They didn't teach me that in law school. They taught me how to be a lawyer. So I started to look around at what other attorneys were doing. How were they practicing? There was no handbook on this. And I got a lot of the same answers, right? High hourly rates, litigate everything, keep costs really vague. And I thought, well, that just doesn't sound right. There was something that didn't sit well with me when attorneys would tell me, well, that's just how you practice law. And one day I realized that here I was with a doctorate degree, have a huge earning potential, financially sound, made all the right decisions in life. And if I had a legal problem and I built a practice that way, I wasn't going to be able to be my own client. And I thought, if I can't be my own client, how is my neighbor going to be a client, or everybody else who has made those smart financial decisions but are now locked out of the legal space? So I said, you know what, I'm going to try something different. And I went out to build a different kind of practice. I got a lot of eye rolls, as you can imagine, from traditional attorneys, a lot of mumbled comments under their breaths, but that really just fueled my determination that there was a different way that I could practice. A lot of trial and tribulation. I stumbled a lot. I fell on my face a bit. I threw everything against the wall in the beginning, right? Because there was no manual for this. But eventually I found my way and found an approach and systems that really work. And so today I have a practice that really focuses on accessibility for the client, but it doesn't diminish the quality, the profitability, or my well-being. And so now I'm taking that information that I've learned and sharing it with other solos so that they can skip past all the trials and tribulations, hit go, collect the $200, and build a practice for them that really is of their dreams. So ultimately, the legal accessibility problem that we have, I think, is going to be solved one solo practice at a time who really takes this new model approach.
Wow. There's a lot that you just shared, and I want to unpack some of it. Back in June of 2018, there was a man who came to us and joined our Thought Leader program. His name is Carl Kramer, and he wasn't an attorney, but he was really passionate about helping solo practitioner attorneys here in Greater Toronto area in Canada scale their practices. And Carl really was good at helping them double, triple, quadruple their business. And in that same journey that he took to help his clients, because we're the ones who helped him narrow his focus. Initially, he was going to help anybody with any business problem, and that wasn't going to work, right? He started working with attorneys, and he very quickly was able to help get a whole bunch of them to like low seven figures of income, which was wonderful, right? And he grew his own coaching practice from like $70,000 a year to $600,000 a year, $50,000 a month. And I was always fascinated by, how a non-lawyer did this. And now I'm speaking to someone who's actually a lawyer, an attorney who's done this. Tell me a little bit about the business model that you chose to create and why you chose to create it. I think that's a good place to start.
My business model is really based on the foundation of providing value to the legal consumer. So I provide everything on a flat fee basis. I don't sell my time like most traditional attorneys do because I don't think that's what legal consumers are ultimately buying. They're buying peace of mind or a risk aversion or making sure that their kids are protected in whatever space the attorney might be in. So I really start from the foundation of value and make a practice that's client-centered so they know the cost up front. They know what they're going to get in terms of the delivery of services. And then on the back end, to really increase the profit margins, I have made a system that's really automated and systematized. So I'm a true solo. I don't have any staff, but I really lean on technology to be able to deliver services even better, oftentimes when I'm not even at my desk. So I have automation set up where a client signs up, they pay, and they immediately get an email from me saying, hey, welcome. Here's the first step in the process. Click this link. I'm not involved in that at all. So I can really help clients get that white glove service without having to spend the time doing the same thing over and over again. So really those two, value and automations, is really that sweet spot.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. I really like what you said, that clients aren't buying hourly time. They're buying peace of mind. Could you expand on that for me a little bit?
Yeah, I think when someone has a legal issue, they're often in some sort of storm. They're stressed out. This is something that they know is really important most of the time, but they have no clue how to solve it. And so they're really looking for a guide to help them get from point A to point B, where this problem has been solved. They've avoided the risk. And I think that lawyers oftentimes miss that realization. They miss the boat entirely. They just say, great, I'm going to get you to point A to point B. I'm going to bill you for my time, but I'm not going to tell you how long it's going to take. And that just adds to the stress that the consumer is facing. Say they're got hit with a lawsuit, or they have a trademark they've worked their whole lives creating, and now somebody's infringing on it. The last thing they need is like, great, now I have this other unknown that the person who's trying to help me can't even tell me how long it's going to take. Aren't they supposed to be the experts? So really focusing on what is the client really buying from us in terms of what is their problem and what's the solution that we are giving them to solve it, and what they're ultimately getting has nothing to do with the time that we spend. It's making sure that that trademark gets protected so that business can continue to grow, or that the lawsuit that somebody is facing, maybe if it's frivolous or it's not really substantiated, right? Being able to advocate against that and get that off their plate, because that's the last thing that they need to deal with.
That's powerful, that's succinct, and I think there's a huge need across the Western world for this type of legal practice. And I think you're in a position where, A, you can teach other people to do this, but I think you can turn this into a licensable methodology and put it out there. I'm putting my thought leader hat there because there's so many people that need this. This is a huge, huge issue. So you developed this amazing new model of doing business in the legal space. And then you saw there's a whole lot of other solo lawyers who also aren't happy with the current legal system. They also see that it puts them in a bit of an adversarial situation with their own clients, which is nuts if you think about it. You don't want to be in an adversarial situation with your client. You want to be on the same side. So talk to me about that journey, what you're doing there, and maybe give me some examples of how this has helped.
Yeah, so I have a coaching program to help solos who are earning not enough and working too much build a practice that they love and that really supports their well-being. And so just thinking about, being on an adversarial side with our clients, a lot of solos struggle with pricing because they agree the billable hour sucks. They don't want to have that tension with their client, but they aren't sure, well, how do I price my services? So I recently worked with a man named Kurt. He came to me. He's an older attorney. So I was a little bit like, man, I bet he's in the trenches. He's been practicing the way he's been practicing for multiple decades. Is he going to just come to me and just listen to what I have to say and go, nah, that's never going to work? But he was really open to it because he had a lot of expertise, but the better he got at his job, the less time it took him. So he actually was losing money. So we worked together to develop a value-based pricing menu for his services. He was in estate planning. And he and I, after working together for a few months, really focusing on the value and the problem that he was solving. In the first 3 months that we had worked together and he implemented this new pricing model, it was the best 3 months of revenue he had ever had in his practice. So just a
Wow.
small change and kind of coming to the practice of law with a slightly different lens had already shifted his revenue and then made him so much more engaged with his clients and really gave him a practice that he felt like he could continue to grow.
So even if you're an older attorney, you're saying you can teach an old dog new tricks. That's what you're saying, right?
You can. Yes. I didn't think it was possible.
But you can. Okay. I like it. That's really good. Okay. Tell me more. Give me another story of maybe like a different side of the equation or a different problem that an attorney was facing.
Yeah. So talking about like the actual implementation of services and the operational side. So most lawyers, they know how to be lawyers. They went to law school for that, but then they get this entrepreneurship hat that they have to wear. They like the freedom of owning their own business, but then they find that they're constantly in the business. They're doing the same tasks over and over again. They're reinventing the wheel every time. Just talked to somebody yesterday who has over 100 new voicemails because he just doesn't have the time to respond to them. So you're leaving money on the table. So really looking at the systems and the automation of a practice, working with another attorney named Michael, who is just the quintessential attorney. He is the ultimate salesperson. He gets along with everybody. He has these intangible skills that a lot of us would kill for as business owners because he can bring people in the door, but he was getting all of these leads and couldn't service them because he was just chugging along trying to actually get the work done. So he and I worked together and mapped out the entire system of his firm, identified where he could put in technology to just automate tasks, and also where he could bring in a staff person where it really made financial sense to have them take off some of that manual administrative work he was doing so that he could be out there meeting with clients, going to networking events, really showcasing his personality because folks are immediately attracted to him, which is only going to raise his revenue because he's going to get more clients and actually be able to service them really well.
So tell me a little bit about what the cost of having leads and not being able to service them was like for Michael and other people like him. What happens to an attorney who is faced with that?
Yeah, you really get in kind of a stagnant position. You hit a plateau. And depending on the average value per case, in Michael's case, it was somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000, that kind of $5,000 sweet spot. So every lead that said, hey, I heard from you from my friend Joe, I want to get signed up, and he wasn't able to reach back out to them, that's $5,000 that just floated out the door that he could have easily sold just by being able to respond. So depending on the practice area, the person I talked to with, hundreds of voicemails, they're in a civil litigation practice. I mean, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially of revenue that you're not getting because you're just not able to do those basic business functions because you're overwhelmed.
So what happens to an attorney who doesn't get to that revenue? What kind of emotional impact does that have on an attorney's headspace? I think you're uniquely positioned to be able to speak to that.
Yeah, it's really demoralizing. When you feel like you're getting better at your job, but you're earning less, or you're working a lot more, doing the same thing on kind of that hamster wheel, it really doesn't make you feel good. It makes you wonder, why did I start this business? Maybe I should just go work for someone else. And after a while, it really can take its toll. I've seen so many colleagues leave the profession entirely. We've had a lot of smart people who have just left. And I recently, a couple of years ago, had a friend who was my mentor in the beginning. She's someone I reached out to. She poured so much into me when I was first getting started. And I always saw her as, wow, she's got this practice. She's had it for a decade. She has all these clients. She's doing such great work. She kills it in court. And I met up with her one day and she said, I'm closing the practice. And it was out of nowhere. I was really shocked. But when I talked to her about it, it was just she felt overwhelmed. She wasn't making enough money. She was working herself to the bone, but she was billing by the hour. And the better she got, the less money that she made. So we lost a really good one. And it really affected her mental health just because she didn't have these systems in place.
So, not to get morbid here, but what is the suicide rate in the legal profession compared to other professions because of this sort of thing? Talk
Yeah,
about that a bit.
our well-being is terrible. So we have a much higher suicide rate than average. We have a much higher substance abuse rate than the average population. Even going back to law school, we're even seeing studies now that law students are drinking more, getting into drugs because of the pressures in law school. And that's not even being out in the profession. So we do have a real mental health crisis in the legal profession in general. And I think part of it is just because of this mechanism that we've built up over several decades. This sort of structure that the profession works in is just not working anymore. It doesn't work for clients. They're not getting served. Here in Colorado, 70% of divorce cases are filed without an attorney. I mean, that's a huge market of saying, I can't afford this. I'm going to have to do it on my own. And then you look at the attorneys are, stressed out, burnt out, abusing substances to just make it by. So it's not working anymore.
Yeah. If there's an attorney that's listening to this and this is you, that you have a solo practice and you are working crazy hours and you're not making as much money as you should be, and it's stressing you out, it's demoralizing because you don't seem to get ahead, and maybe you're doubting yourself, maybe you're even thinking of giving up on your dream of getting into the law. And I know a lot of people get into the legal profession because it's a calling. It's an opportunity to use the majesty of the law to help people. You're going to want to call Lauren. You're going to want to get on her calendar. Yeah. So Lauren, give us one final story of someone you've worked with who went through hell and how what you did helped them get out of hell.
Yeah, I love your point about a lot of us get into this profession because we want to help people. I think most attorneys I talk to, no matter where they are in their careers, that's always our driving force. So I had my great friend from law school. She and I went through the trenches together and she started her own practice as well. But she kind of hit that plateau in terms of, I'm just not getting more clients. I don't know what else to do. And so she and I worked together and I really pushed her in terms of her marketing to start creating video content and start putting it out there and helping folks in her community just learn the basics. She's in the guardian ad litem space, so kind of custody, dependency, and neglect spaces, and just put information out there because, folks, this is really scary. If CPS is involved in your life, what does that look like? What are your rights as a parent? She hated me for the first 3 weeks because I was making her do this thing she didn't want anything to do with. She thought this was a terrible idea. And I just said, trust the process. And so she stuck with it. And she did that for a few months. And within that time period was able to increase her leads coming in threefold. So she was getting 3 times as many people calling, looking for her services just by leaning into this marketing strategy that we developed together. So really being able to hone into each individual lawyer's specific challenges and then find a solution that's going to work for them, that's going to increase their revenue, that's going to let them work less and still have that impact that they got into the profession to have.
That's brilliant. So Lauren, if someone is interested in finding out more about your coaching academy, or if they're in Colorado and they need a lawyer, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, so all my coaching information is at adifferentpractice.com. You can also go to adifferentpractice.com/call to schedule a free discovery call with me. And if you are in Colorado looking for help protecting your financial peace, my legal website for my law firm is mylifelawyer.com.
adifferentpractice.com/call. And then what was the last one?
mylifelawyer.com. That is my law firm website.
mylifelawyer.com. We're going to make sure we put all that in the show notes. So, Lauren, we like to end off each show by asking you, as my guest expert, what are your top 3, what I call expert action steps? These are your 3 best pieces of advice to help my listener take their business, their life to the next level in bullet point form. What say you?
I would say always focus on value and the problem that you solve first and foremost. I think that's where every business should start. Don't be afraid to look outside of your profession for ideas. So if you're in the legal profession, if you sell t-shirts, be open to any and all inspiration. And then third, be yourself and be authentic, even if the folks around you or your colleagues maybe don't do something the way you think it's good to be done, or you want to take a chance, bet on yourself. For me, it's paid off. I'm in a very traditional profession, and it worked for me to say, you know what, I think I can do this better, and really trusting myself in that process.
Bet on yourself is excellent advice. I think everybody in business needs to do this more, because too many people they lose faith. And one of the key things you need to do when you're losing faith in yourself is find somebody in your corner who's going to see you for who you really are, for the greatness that you have. So, listener, the legendary Lauren Lester, L to the power of 3 is the real deal. If you're in Colorado and you need legal help, go to mylifelawyer.com. If you're an attorney, solo practitioner attorney, who's looking for a way to fall in love with what you do again and to have peace of mind while making more money, go to adifferentpractice.com/call to book a call with Lauren. Super important that you do that. And if you got some value from this episode and you have a friend who's maybe an attorney or a friend who lives in Colorado, share this episode with them. Okay, because Lauren's been dropping gold here for you. And the gold that she's giving you is going to help you take your life and your business to the next level. Lauren, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a real pleasure, a total honor to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Nikki. It's always wonderful to chat with you.
Absolutely. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's guest, the legendary Lauren Lester, go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com, or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Audible, Google Play, YouTube, Rumble, or what have you. And remember, help us out by leaving us a like, leaving us a rating, leaving us a review. The algorithm likes it when there's more likes, ratings, and reviews. And if you're getting value from this, it's one way you can help us move the action to where other people who need it will be able to see it and benefit from it. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.